we are starting to change our environment. So during the last 100 years, or especially the 50 years, we did see spectacular growth of human impact on the planet. You can look at any indicators, CO2 concentration, or look at the temperature, or look at the diversity loss, or look at the extreme climate, look at the flood system. Those are all changing. Indicator all shows that we are really consuming the earth to a great extent. And that is really worrisome. As Darwin said, 150 years ago, he was born 200 years ago, but 150 years ago, he did say that it's not the strongest or the smartest which survive. It's the one who can adapt to the environment. And now human society is changing the environment faster than we can adapt. If you believe in what Darwin said, we might not have a chance to survive under these conditions. Last year, National Geographic State of the Earth made a report and said we have 6.8 billion people live on the planet. And on average, together we are consuming about 1.4 times Earth's worth of resources per year. If we all consume like American, we will need 5.4 Earths. Many of the countries, so-called developing countries, are also consuming too much. And only India is only, if everybody live like Indian, if we only consume 0.4 times the Earth. So this is really quite worrisome. As you remember, in 2007, IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, and Gore received Nobel Prize because he warned humanity about the danger of climate change. In that IPCC report, they warned us that if we continue to let concentration of carbon dioxide to go up, at the present time, compared to pre-industrial revolution, temperature is already raised by 0.6 degrees. It was minus 0.6, now it's 0. And even at this time, at the current weather situation, we do have to worry about something, but risk for extreme weather events like shown here, as we can see, sometimes we have the drought, we have a flood, it starts to become appreciable. But if you look at the far right, something called risk for large-scale continuities is not very serious, not at all, because white color is okay, orange color is becoming serious, and red is going to be really bad. So there scientists suggested that we should do our best to contain the temperature rise, not to go above 2 degrees from the pre-industrial revolution. Of course, by the time we go up to 2 degrees, extreme weather conditions will become very serious. But the major discontinuity will not be there, so humanity will survive. Some of the people will suffer more than the places in other places, and some might be even benefited. But the major disparity is not going to be very important. But during the last several years, scientists did find that the situation is really much worse than people tend to believe. And actually, IPCC report was based on the 2001 data. But if you look at the proposal made by based on the data on 2007, situation is a lot worse. So even if we allow temperature to go up by 2 degrees centigrade, the color is already become orange. It means the risk of large-scale discontinuity become finite. It's not negligible. It's become quite serious. What do we mean by risk of large-scale discontinuity? You can imagine with this non-linear phenomena, when ocean temperature rises, one day you might see ocean start to cough up lots of carbon dioxide or methane, which exists as a methane hydrate on the bottom of the ocean. If that were to release in a large amount, then suddenly temperature will be uncontrollable and human survival will be in really great danger. We might start to disappear. But the thing is, if we continue to go on like that, and that scenario could take place within this century, it means we're not talking about long time in the future. We're talking about our next generation, our children or grandchildren might see that the discontinuity in the weather and we all disappear. This is a real danger, and that's why scientists are really worried and keep on saying that we know what's happening, we know what we need to do, and that is the updated reasons for concern. So the argument is not, should we do something? We really need to do something in a hurry, otherwise we won't survive. I want to show you one of the slides on the major floods per decade. From 1950, 60, up to 2000 in Asia, the flood numbers goes up. And I didn't have the 2010 yet, but if I put 2010, certainly that will shoot up through the roof. Not only Asia like this, other places will be the same. And somebody in Oceania, Australia said, well, you better come to Australia. If you look at the flood, it will be not too bad. Not too bad as other places. But look at what happened when they are saying that. That was the flood about a year ago. The flood was the size of France and Germany combined. And Australian officials said, this is a disaster of biblical proportions. Only takes place in 1,000 years. But that are taking place again and again. And if you look at Taiwan last year, on August 8th, Taiwan came and stayed there. In 2 days, dropped 3 meters of rain. That's a record. In the year 2001, in 3 days, dropped 2 meters of rain in Taipei. Taipei is all flooded. Subway system is all flooded. This time, in Shaolin Village, 3 meters of rain dropped during 2 days. That is really something lots of people cannot imagine. You ought to be standing there and look up as if somebody upstairs forgot to turn off the faucet. Water just keep on coming down. And the left-hand side shows that it is a village originally looked like this, but after 2 days of rain, mudslide, and 8 people killed overnight, instantaneously. That is really horrible. And we're trying, but the international effort is really not enough. This is the most recent emission gap report. At the Copenhagen Accord, many countries pledged that they will do something, and it will be sufficient to limit the global warming to 2 degrees centigrade or 1.5 degrees centigrade if all the Copenhagen pledges are implemented, that will produce 49 billion tons by 2020. And the stay within 2 degrees centigrade, it means for 66% chances, we can only emit 44 billion tons. As I said, 2 degrees centigrade is not safe anymore. But in order to maintain 2.2 degrees centigrade by 2020, 9 years from now, emission has to be contained within 44 billion tons. But even if every country do the best they can, and all the highest Copenhagen pledges are implemented, we will still be emitting 49 billion tons. The gap is 5 billion tons. That is really horrible. So while we're talking about development, we're talking about making progress. If that were to be happening, all those efforts will be in vain. Of course, as the climate changes, other thing we're seeing, which is very serious, is the biodiversity loss. And if you look at the food production, 1/3 of the food we eat is pollinated by wild insects that's worth over $200 billion. I remember about 2 years ago in China, Sichuan province, one of the county, they are planting pears. Suddenly bee disappears. Pear will not bear the fruit anymore. So they complain to the government, say, please help, do something. Government say, how could I help? You better do pollination yourself. So you see the farmers using step ladders, climb up the tree, and flower after flower, they're doing pollinations. And the scenery was so ridiculous. The bee is doing free, only with half grams of bee, and flying all over the place and doing pollination free of charge. Then you see 50 kilograms of men climb up the ladders doing pollination flower after flower. If you do not do it, then there's no fruit. And that is happening. And I'm sure if the biodiversity were to disappear, mankind will also disappear altogether. That's why I was saying we need to wake up. It's awakening. It's time for us to wake up and accede to the fact that our world is overdeveloped. If you agree with me that at the present time we have too many people consuming too much resources, producing too much waste, and our survival is in danger, then our world is really overdeveloped. If you accede to the fact that the world as its entirety is overdeveloped, then it doesn't make sense to divide all the country into developed country and developing country. I would say a large fraction of the countries are overdeveloped country. Some of the countries are not yet overdeveloped. At the present time, many of the developing countries are already overdeveloped in terms of the consumption and production of the waste. So we have to re-examine what we are going. Many countries aim to increase the GDP, and when we talk about economy, we said we have to stimulate the consumption.